Alrighty, so today we are going to look at the Supporter Shield race, and we're going to specifically look at these 9 teams that are still within touching distance of the Supporter Shield race, because I have a feeling that down the stretch, the Supporter Shield race is going to come down to the final day and heading into decision day. And while most of these teams still have 6 games left in the season, there are some teams that have 7 games, or in the case of Inter Miami, they still have 9 games left, and they still have so many games in hand. The fact that realistically, if they do win their games in hand, they actually could crown as the Supporter Shield champion and repeat as the Supporter Shield champion as well. And in other words, they also control their own destiny of once again winning the Supporter Shield. But now let's take a look at the team that is currently at the top of the Supporter Shield, that is the Philadelphia Union. And it's hard to believe the Union are back at the Supporter Shield standing, despite the fact that they haven't really been playing that well, at least in these last couple of weeks, and even this month in general. They're still at the top of the Supporter Shield standings with a 16-6-6 record and currently have 54 points. Now, obviously, lately the Supporter Shield standings and whoever is at the top, it's been a revolving door lately. I mean, there's been teams that have been in that spot, and the very next week it's a different team in that spot, and it's been pretty much a revolving door between the Union, San Diego, and FC Cincinnati. And somebody tells me it could be a revolving door again, because guess what happened? It's going to happen this weekend. Yeah, Philadelphia Union is going to be playing against FC Cincinnati for that battle between the top 2 team in the Eastern Conference. So there could be a case where we could see a flip again in terms of who is at the top of the Supporter Shield standing, and then we could see it again the very next day, because San Diego does play on Sunday instead of Saturday as well. In fact, they're the only team that's going to be playing on Sunday out of all these teams. That is playing this Saturday. Or in the case of some teams, they of course won't play until September 13th, because they still have Leeds Cup commitment that they have to do. But like I said, look at the remaining schedule. They got FC Cincinnati on the road. Then they of course return home to play against the Vancouver Whitecaps. Then they play at home against New England before going on the road to play against DC United. Then they play NYCFC at home before or the decision day game. They are playing against Charlotte FC on the road, and we'll talk about Charlotte in just a bit. The fact that with them being red hot right now and have really played themselves into the Supporter Shield conversation out of nowhere, there could be a case where that could be a matchup that could decide the Supporter Shield race as well. And especially when you look at the remaining schedule for the Union, it's not an easy schedule. I mean, it is a little bit easy maybe in the middle, with them playing against two teams that are pretty much done this season, with New England and DC United, who are literally done this season. They're the first team to be eliminated this year as well. The remaining schedule are pretty much all against teams that are in the playoffs, and there are literally 3 teams that they're playing in the remaining 6 games, and half the games that they're playing in the remaining games are against teams that are basically on this board that I put up as teams that are in the midst of the Supporter Shield race. Now, looking at San Diego FC, who currently have a 16-5-7 record and currently have 53 points. Now, for San Diego, they are also trying to make history in terms of becoming the team that have the most point ever in an expansion season. I believe they just need 6 more points to tie LAFC, who reached 59 points back in their expansion season in 2018. And if San Diego can reach that and can get 60 points, then they of course will break the record. And I think they are going to break the record. When you look at the amount of games that they have, there's no doubt that they can definitely get points, or at least more than 6 points in the last 6 games of the season. But it's not going to be easy though, because the very next game that they have to face is against the team that, of course, currently have the title for the most points in an expansion season. That is LAFC on the road. Then they, of course, have to play against Minnesota, which is a game that could be a battle between top two teams in the Western Conference. Could be a Supporter Shield 6 pointer, just like what we're about to see this weekend with the battle between the top 2 team in the East, that is Cincinnati and the Philadelphia Union. Now, it does get a little easier for San Diego after that. They face against Atlanta at home before facing the San Jose Earthquakes at home. Then they go on the road to play against the Houston Dynamo, and then on the final day of the season, they go on the road to play against the Portland Timbers. So, yeah, I mean, obviously San Diego is definitely in uncharted territory when it comes to an expansion team. They're already going to most likely break the record for the most point expansion team has ever got, and most likely could potentially be the second ever expansion team to finish at the top of the Western Conference, joining St. Louis City that did it just a couple of years ago. But can you imagine them winning the Sapporo Shield and being the first ever expansion team to win the Sapporo Shield? Like that would be absolutely insane. But it's still within touching distance. Like look where they are in the Sapporo Shield race. They're only 1 points behind, and knowing that in this matchup between Cincinnati and the Union, there could be a case where both teams could drop points. They can get that win against FC on the road, which is easier said to be done. They could find themselves back at the top of the Supporter Shield standings. Now, looking at FC Cincinnati themselves, they have a 16-4-8 record and currently have 52 points. Looking at the remaining schedule, they got the Union at home in that Supporter Shield 6 point they're coming up. Then they have to face against Nashville SC before going on the road to play against the Galaxy, and then they have to face Orlando City at home. The Red Bulls on the road, and then Montreal to finish the season on decision day. So just like the Union, Cincinnati has a really tough remaining schedule as well, especially when you look at the next two games as well. I mean, the Union have games against two teams that are right in the fix of the Supporter Shield race. The same goes for Cincinnati as well, facing against Nashville, and even have to face against Orlando City as well, another team that could be that are on this list in terms of the teams that are still in the Supporter Shield race. So we'll see how Pat Nolan team will going to do. It's also important to note that 4 of their last 6 games is going to be at home. And the reason why I want to mention that, and normally that's a good thing because when you have a home heavy schedule to finish off the season, that usually could help your causes in terms of picking up a lot of points so that you can crown yourself as a Supporter Shield winner. But the problem for Cincinnati this season is that they're a team that is definitely not as good at home compared to them on the road. They're a much better road team this season. It's not even a question. I mean, they're right now have the most points that any team has got on the road this season. The best record on the road this season by far. But at home, it's been kind of a little bit spotty. So as a result, it's not a wholly guaranteed thing that Cincinnati would get themselves at the top of the Supporter Shield by the end of the season, especially the teams that they still have to play to finish off the season as well. Then we look at Nashville. So Nashville have a 15-5-8 record currently with 50 points. Looking at the remaining schedule, they got Atlanta United at home before have to go on the road to face against Cincinnati, as I mentioned. Then they have to go on the road to play against Orlando before playing against Houston Dynamo at home and then playing on the road against Montreal. And then for the final game of the season, I talked about the Charlotte versus Philly game could be a Supporter Shield decider. This Nashville Miami game could also be a Supporter Shield decider, especially with the way that Miami, if they can even win some of the games in hand that they have, they'll be right in the thick of things of this Supporter Shield race. So yeah, again, it is a pretty tough schedule that Nashville has to encounter as well. I mean, the Atlanta game it should be a win in their book, especially at home. But then after that, I mean, Cincinnati, that's one that they could definitely do it. Consider Cincinnati is not very good at home, but then Orlando, and then finish the season against Inter Miami. Assuming that Inter Miami maybe we still have an interest in terms of reaching the support Shield title. Yeah, that's not an easy schedule for Nashville to finish the remaining part as well. Then we look at Minnesota. So for Minnesota, they have a 14-8-6 record and currently have 50 points. It's hard to believe that Minnesota, as deep as we're in the season, they're still in the mix of the Supporter Shield standing. But I guess that's what happened with them being so consistent this season. This is a team that it's hard to believe they have not dropped out of the third position since early May as well. They've been consistently near the top three and now currently in second place. And it's also hard to believe that of all the points that they dropped this season and all the games that just kind of pull my hair out because of the amount of times that they draw points, they could realistically be at the top of the Supporter Shield standings right now. And I would have never imagined, of all the talks of me saying that, well, these points that Minnesota drop, is that going to come back to haunt them late in the season? And when I say it's going to haunt them back later this season, I don't mean the fact that it's going to haunt them in terms of not getting at the top of the Supporter Shield standings. But looking at their remaining schedule, they got the Portland Timbers at home. If they win that one, they officially will clinch the playoffs as well, become the second team to clinch playoff position this year. Then they go on the road to play against San Diego. That could be a matchup between the top two team in the Western Conference. But then the rest of the schedule, I mean, the rest of the schedule, I don't want to say it's easy, but it is against teams that are kind of near playoff contention, and also teams that are pretty much in see you next season mode. One of those teams that are kind of in playoff contention is the Chicago Fire, where they play against them at home. Then they go on the road against the Colorado Rapids, a place that they have never usually do well when they go on their travel against the Rapids. Then they return home to play against Sporting KC, and then for the final game of the season, they're going to be going on the road to play against the LA Galaxy. So yeah, when you look at the schedule compared to those four teams that I've already mentioned, Minnesota remaining schedule is definitely much easier compared to what I just mentioned, the remaining schedule of these four teams that is. But that being said, just because it sounds easy doesn't mean that it's a guarantee win. And if there's one thing I know about this team is that even when they do face against easy team, they somehow find ways to fumble, especially at home as well. At home this season, it's kind of the same problem as we saw last year and the previous year as well, where there haven't really been a good home team. I mean, it is a little bit better compared to previous year, but it feels like they're having the same issue as Cincinnati is having, where this is a team that is very good on the road. I mean, this is a team that plays much better on the road compared to them playing at home. And unfortunately, just like Cincinnati, and I probably should have also mentioned this with Cincinnati as well. Heading into the playoffs, as much as some teams might be happy that they finish near the top of the standings because they get home field advantage throughout the playoffs, I mean, these two teams they probably don't want home field advantage with the way that they've been playing much better on the road. So that's kind of interesting to see how it goes for Minnesota for the remaining of the season. I mean, I do want this team to still finish near the top of the standings, and I especially want this team to get into the playoffs in a pretty good form, because last thing you want is to head to the playoffs with no momentum whatsoever. And there's a good case that they could get themselves some momentum because, like I said, looking at the back end of the schedule, the last two games are literally against teams that have nothing to play for, and I'm probably going to be eliminated by then as well. So those two games could use as a runway in terms of them potentially go deep into the playoffs. I mean, the expectation I think is definitely going to be bigger this season for this Minnesota team compared to last season, where last season was really kind of house money once they get into the playoffs as well. Now, moving on, we got the Vancouver Whitecaps, who have a 14-7-6 record, who currently have 49 points. This is a team that's been pretty much in the Supporters Shield race since the beginning of the season when they were an absolute wagon. Now, obviously, with the way that they kind of slowed down around June and July, that's why they kind of slide down the Supporters Shield race, but they're still within touching distance. And especially the bonus with the Vancouver Whitecaps, they have a game in hand over all the teams that is currently above them, and only Inter Miami is the only team that hasn't played that play more than the 6 games that as the remaining teams on this board right now. Now that being said, when you look at the remaining schedule that they have, it's quite crazy to say, but they're not going to be in action until September 13th, and this is not because of the fact that they're in the Leeds Cup or have any Leeds Cup commitment. Their schedule literally says that they have a bye week this week, so and with the way that they're also not playing during the international break in September, they're not going to have a game until the 13th, and they're going to have like a 3 week break in between games. Now, normally when you have breaks in between games, that could be helpful, but 3 weeks is just way too much. And it also doesn't help the fact that after that 3 week break, they face against a team that is at the top of the supporter shield standing, that is the Philadelphia Union. So that's going to be really going to go against Vancouver if they still want to have chances to win the supporter shield this year. The fact that yeah, they get a good rest after that, but then they have to play against the team that is at the top of the supporter shield standing, and because they do have an extra game compared to most of these teams, that means the schedule does get a little bit congested late in this one, because after that they play against Sporting KC on the road, and then they have to play against Vancouver, or they have to play against the Portland Timbers at home, that is, but then they have to go on the road to face against the Seattle Sounders. The good thing I will say about this 3 games in 7 days, as much as I know it sucks to have a situation where you always hate when you have a home games that is sandwiched right between the 3 games in 7 days. The short week that they have, the weekend games that they have face against Seattle, at least they don't have to travel that far away. That is definitely going to be a huge bonus. It's not like a situation where it's like the worst case scenario where you get to play on the road, then you return home, and then you have to fly across the other side of the country to play against an Eastern Conference team on a short week. It's not going to be the case in this one. They get to stay in the Pacific northwest and take a short ride down uh, south of the Cascadia region to play against the Sounders on the road. Though that's not going to be an easy match as well because Vancouver hasn't really done well against Seattle when they're playing on the road, and especially Seattle has been really good lately this down the stretch as well. Then they of course return home to play against the San Jose Earthquakes, but then they go on the road to play against Orlando City before returning home to play against FC Dallas. And by the way, I think the reason why they're not going to be play a game in 3 weeks is because one of the team that they were supposed to play on August 30th was against Orlando City. So now I think that kind of makes sense why they have a 3 week break. But again, it really does not help Jasper Sorensen case. The fact that, yes, he would love to have his team to be well rested for the stretch run, but not that much rest considered they're going to be very rusty coming into the game against the Philadelphia Union, and it's going to be hard for them to really kind of pick things up, knowing that this is the stretch run they wanted still trying to not only win the Supporters Shield but maybe finish at the top of the Western Conference as that's been a place where they've been in for most part of this season. There's basically now a free horse race when it comes to the standings right now. Maybe a four-team race depending on if LAFC can win some of their game in hand as well. But realistically, I think there could be just a free horse race who's going to finish at the top of the Western Conference. Now, looking at Charlotte FC as well, and it's hard to believe that if you would have told any Charlotte fan about a month and a half ago that this team would be in the Supporters Shield race by then, I think all Charlotte fans would laugh at you and thinking, what kind of alternative universe are you living in? But 7 wins in a row later, they're in the thick of this Supporters Shield race as well. Now, to be fair, they are still a little bit far out in terms of its 7 points out with 6 games. That is a little bit of a reach, but I kind of want to include them just because of the fact that they are on a record-setting pace of becoming the fifth team ever in MLS to have a 7-game winning streak and are chasing down that record that the Seattle Sounders set of winning 9 in a row in a regular season. But they have a 15-2-11 record, currently at 47 points. The next game that they, of course, will face will be facing against the New England Revolution on the road, but then they have to play against Miami at home. That's going to be a really tough game, and that could be a game that maybe we could see their winning streak come to an end as well. But after that, they go on the road to face against NYCFC, which you would assume that would be an easy match until you realize NYCFC has been very good this season at home, and this is a team that they love to face against teams that are near the top of the standings whenever they play at home. It's just kind of a weird phenomenon that NYCFC tends to do well when they face against good teams at home this season. I mean, maybe it has something to do with the baseball dimension, but it also kind of doesn't explain the fact that when they do face against bad teams at home, they tends to not pick up resort as a resort. But after that, they face against Montreal at home before facing against DC United on the road, and then they finish the season against the Philadelphia Union, a matchup that, as I mentioned, could be a decider in terms of the supporter shield race. And then we look at Orlando City, and now this is where we kind of started to get to a little bit out of reach territory. And I think Orlando probably shouldn't have included them in this conversation. Consider, I mean, they are on the same points total as Charlotte, but the reason why I include Charlotte is because they've been red hot. Orlando has, I mean, they have been a little bit inconsistent at time, and when you look at the remaining schedule, Orlando has had that is by far the toughest remaining schedule out of it most of these teams that are still in the supporter shield race. But they have a 13-8-7 record, currently at 47 points. They're not going to play a league game until September 13th because they're going to be in the Leagues Cup third place matchup on Sunday. But when they return to league play, they face against DC United on the road. But that's pretty much the only easy game that they're going to have for the remaining time because then they have to face against Nashville at home, go on the road to face against Cincinnati, return home to face against Columbus, uh, return home to face against the Vancouver Whitecaps, and then they have, you would say, kind of an easy matchup against Toronto, though Toronto has been a team that has caused nightmares to teams even at the top of the Eastern Conference as well. So yeah, that is a brutal schedule to finish the year for this Orlando City side. One that maybe might not be enough in terms of being them in the supporter shield race. But hey, one of the thing I will say about facing a brutal schedule like that is that you do get a chance to face against teams that are in the mix in terms of the Supporter Shield race. And if there's one easy way to pass some of these teams that you need to pass in terms of getting to the first position, well, why not face against those teams? Those are an easy way for you to have a chance to catch up or pass some of these team as well. So we'll see how Orlando City is going to do. I mean, I don't expect them to win the Supporter Shield, but it's a good shout, especially with the way that they do have a lot of teams that they face that are kind of like right on this board in terms of fighting for Supporter Shield race. And then last but not least, we talk about Inter Miami, who currently have a 13-7-5 record, currently have 47 points, or I'm sorry, 46 points. That is. Now, the reason why I want to include Inter Miami in there, even though they are not about 8 points out of the Supporter Shield race, theoretically, they control their own destiny, and also, so if they win out, doesn't matter what anybody does, they will repeat as the Supporter Shield standings because with those 3 games in hand, if you do the math, 8 points, that's enough for them to make up for that 8 points deficit if they win all 3 of those games in hand. So that's going to be easier said to be done because when you look at the remaining schedule, this team by far, between them and LAFC, these are the 2 teams that are probably have the most congested schedule to finish the season. In fact, when they do return back to play in league play on September 13th, because there are another team that is still involving the Leeds Cup, playing that final against the Seattle Sounders this Sunday. They face again Shard FC before have to play at home against the Seattle Sounders. Then they stay at home to face against DC, but then they have to travel to New York to face against NYCFC, and then they go on the road to face against Toronto before returning to play at home against Chicago. Then they play at home against New England, play at home against Atlanta United, and then on the final game of the season, they have to face against Nashville SC, a game that could be a Supporter Shield race decider depending on where both of these teams sit heading into decision day. And again, with such a congested schedule like that, with the way that they have to pretty much play 3 games in 7 days for about 3 weeks, and doing that 17 stretch, they have to play 6 games. That is. This is where I think for Javier Mascherano, he's gonna have a tough decision that he has to make. And I think, I know if you ask him deep down, he'll say that basically we want to compete for everything. It doesn't matter if it's MLS Cup or Supporter Shield. We want to compete for that. But ideally, with the way that this team have already won the Supporter Shield, and it would be nice to repeat as Supporter Shield champion. But I think the if you ask any Inter Miami fans, and if you really want Javier Marciano to admit what he really wants to compete, it's obviously MLS Cup. I mean, if it does take to sacrifice some of these games just to stay fresh for MLS Cup, I think he will not hesitate to do so. And especially with the way that, even if this Inter Miami team doesn't have Messi playing and maybe some of his friends playing, this team still can do well against opposition and are still picking up resort against opposition. That just kind of shows you how deep this Inter Miami team is. So I do think that as much as yes, they are still in a realistic shout for support for Shield, and again, if they win out, they'll probably be supporter Shield champion. I wouldn't be surprised if they might rest some of their guys, especially it's one thing to have so many games in a short amount of period near the beginning of the season, but now we're in the back end of the season, and the fact that this team have played probably the most game that I've seen any MLS team have played in league history. I mean, this by the time they get to the final game of the season against Nashville, they would have probably played at least 60 plus games with them being involved in Leeds Cup, CONCACAF Champions Cup, what else? FIFA Club World Cup as well on top of the league play. Yeah, it just shows you that they play so many games doing a short amount of period that you don't want to be burned out when the playoff begin. That's the one worry I think thing you have with this Inter Miami team, and especially with this team being a team that is the definition of MLS Cup or bust. That is the last thing you want to do getting burned out. And even if you do win the Supporter Shield again, getting burned out heading into the playoffs and potentially staring down another first round exit, that would be absolutely unacceptable. Like, there's no doubt that this team, in terms of the expectation, if they do not win MLS Cup, it doesn't even matter if they do win the Supporter Shield. They don't win MLS Cup, it's considered to be another failure of the season for this Inter Miami team. That's how big the expectation that this team has set coming into this season and coming out of the season as well. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at the Supporter Shield race. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. And also let me know in the comments below who exactly is going to win the Supporter Shield down the stretch. I mean, it is still really tough to tell who is going to be, and I do have a feeling it's going to come down to decision day, like what we've seen but before a couple of years ago. I think the last time a supporter shield race came down to decision day, I think was back in 2020 in that COVID shortened season. But nevertheless, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.